after the state demanding massive compensation for what he terms as an illegal dismissal from office. The explosive case kicks off today in a courtroom showdown that could redefine the boundaries of power, politics and accountability. We have Sheila Chelangat, who's been following up on that and gives us the latest.
All right, good afternoon, Linda Alela. Of course, I have been following the proceedings for the Rigathi Gachagua impeachment case that has been ongoing at the Milimani Court since 10 a.m. today morning. The first session has just wrapped up, and we did see the lead counsels for the petitioner, who is Rigathi Gachagua, who the former deputy president, just begin to lay down the case and begin to just give the facts into the case. So we will be having a second session from 2 p.m. But what has come out, strong during this first session is that now former deputy president has already began this petition, which is being heard by Justices Eric Ogola, Anthony Murima, and Freda Mugambi, and they're listening to these petitions, which are substantive arguments on the petition that is now challenging the legality of Gachagua's impeachment. Now, remember that Gachagua became the first deputy president in Kenya to be impeached, and continues to argue that his ouster was riddled with procedural irregularities, also constitutional violations, and a denial of a fair hearing. Now, the legal team maintains that the entire process was politically motivated and that it lacked a legal basis, with now the former deputy president alleging that there could have been bribes solicited in both the national Assembly as well as the Senate. Now, what the lead counsel, who is Paul Muite, has spoke about is that they would be focusing on the quashing of the unconstitutional impeachment, the payment of remuneration that former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua would have earned as per law as damages for the period of the 2.5 years that he served as a deputy. And also, they're just mentioning a bit of, their argument is that there was a lack of meaningful public participation in the process, that the exercise, which was conducted in several counties during the impeachment time, was not adequate or meaningful. Also, they argue that the deputy president, who is now former deputy president now, that his side of the story was not given, and that only the National Assembly side was given a chance to, state their case, which Paul Muite rightfully mentioned that was a mockery of effective public participation. Also, one of the other issues that has been raised is the rush with which the process was conducted. Paul Muite mentioning that there was, a speed that of, lightning and, a breakneck speed, which indicates that there could have been a predetermined result in the whole process. And he mentions that that shows there was a clear bias on the part of the Senate towards former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Also, we have seen the issue of, whether the threshold was met in terms of, the Senate addressing the impeachment, bearing in mind that Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua then was elected by the electorate. And so all these are matters that are coming up for the three-judge bench to just give guidance on, as even the whole entire hearing comes, to be heard. And, there are, allegations that, the allegations were fake and unfounded, whereby there was charges, the 11 charges against Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, that, for instance, the gross violation of office. And so all that are coming up at this particular point, and we would be getting to hear more from the, lead counsels as well as the counsel and the legal team for the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. There was supposed to be a second hearing tomorrow and a third hearing the day after, but all this have been pushed to to the 7th and 8th of May, as one of the judges on the bench is supposed to be, part of the team that would be interviewing the judges for the Supreme Court. So that is it. Those are the updates as at now, more as it comes.
All right, that's Sheila Chelangat following the proceedings, that is at the Milimani Law Court via phone, will be giving us more updates as she has promised. Now, the